Steve Saccone, Vice President of the SEU Ministry Network. Steve's got over 2 decades plus of partnering with churches and ministries nationwide, launching leadership programs and pipelines. Steve has also worked with tons of local churches, nonprofits, and other business in his career. I mean, this guy is just kind of touching everything. Really excited to have him in on this podcast. Steve also specializes in developing leaders in personal and professional growth. He's an author of 5 books, and he's working on his doctorate in ministry at Southeastern University. Welcome to the podcast and the channel, Mr. Steve Saccone. Steve, man, this is something that I've been wanting to get you on for a long time, so I appreciate you carving out some time to join me in this one.
Yeah, I'm excited to be with you, Darrell. We talk all the time here and there, but it's fun to be able to kind of get out and record it and chat about some meaningful things. So thanks for having me.
Yeah, Steve. So let's just kind of jump into what you're doing now and then hit a little bit of your background just so the people watching, people listening can kind of go a little bit more than what you have on your website. And by the way, if you're looking for more information on Steve, you can just check out stevesaccone.com. So Steve, VP, Vice President of the SEU Ministry Network, kind of walk us through what that really entails.
Yeah, I'm the Vice President of the SEU Ministry Network, and so our university really has a passion for the local church and just working with churches, but also nonprofit organizations and really other businesses too. But my focus is really in the church world. I've been a pastor for 15 plus years as well. Served at Mosaic Church in Los Angeles, another church called Awakening in Northern California. But when this opportunity came before me about 9 years ago, Dr. Kent Ingle, who's the president of Southeastern, and I had a conversation, and I was feeling a calling to serve and equip young leaders or emerging leaders in local churches, but I didn't really know what to do with that. And so as our conversation unfolded, and Dr. Ingle told me what SEU was doing, 9 or 10 years ago, my heart was captured by that, and I stepped into this role, and I get to basically work with all these different church leaders in developing their 18 to 25-year-olds, more or less, many of which who have a calling to vocational ministry or who are trying to discover that calling. So I visit a lot of churches across the country. I spend time with people who are building those programs. We support them, serve them, equip them. And I could say lots about that, but I love what I get to do, being in the local church and being in the conversations around leadership development and spiritual formation of young adults, really.
Yeah, so Steve, we met, I think at this point, maybe about five and a half years ago. I took a position at Southeastern University. About 5 months in, I was lucky enough to get a creative director position, but I think it was week 2 that I did a Google Meet with you, and I think you were a regional director for the extension site system, which is now the SEU Ministry Network. And you just shared your heart for doing student testimonials, and that was really cool for me to kind of jump in, and also your department funded some of the travel, so that was nice to kind of just be able to travel around just Florida, and then we did a little bit in Texas over at Celebration Church, but just to be able to get out and see the impact that Southeastern has at these local churches, that they have a college or university that SEU accreditates them to have that. And so just to see, the excitement on these campuses and talk with these students, man, I mean, it was just really uplifting, and it was really eye-opening, especially early on in my career over at Southeastern.
Yeah, those were fun times, Darrell. I love hearing the stories of the students and really how God has worked in their life and transformed their life. And I've heard, dozens and dozens over the years. And when we went to capture, some of them on video, I mean, that's kind of what helps you propel them and share them with others in a powerful way. And so I think the convergence of, creativity and I guess technology helps us to do that. But that's kind of why we do what we do. That's why I love what I get to do. I mean, in my particular role, I work with a lot of the church leaders, of course, more than the students on the ground, but I'm always interacting with students. I'll visit a church and I do a Q&A sometimes, or maybe I'll speak at their chapel or even a staff meeting, and I get to interact with students. And just to, one thing I love about interacting with students is you always see this hunger for God, to grow, to learn, sometimes to discover, maybe like self-discovery or discover their calling. We talk a lot at SEU about your divine design. How do you discover and develop your divine design? And so, too, Darrell, having been at SEU before, Dr. Engel is all about that, and so are all our staff, and we talk about that a lot. And the beauty of when we see a student story, when we get to capture a student story on video, in some, we'll call it random place around the country, in Texas or Florida or California or wherever, it's a powerful thing to hear their story and to see the impact that before you meet that student, like, you don't know, like, we have over 200 church partners. So, I mean, to try to know the thousands of students that are at these churches and in these different programs, of course, I don't know all of them, but when you hear those powerful stories, it reminds you of the privilege it is to get to serve them and raise up the next generation. And it gives you hope. To me, it's like, I'm very hopeful and optimistic about what's emerging in the next generation, in particular in the local church, and the kinds of leaders that are being raised up and growing into who they are.
Yeah, so more on the professional leadership, more on the spiritual leadership side. So it was one of the really cool projects that I got to jump on with you. And I want to touch this because I think it's a good transition point into like the rest of the interview of like really your why.
Yeah.
And like, why do you keep doing this in, I guess, relation to your pastoral background and just at this point in your career. But one of the projects that was really, really cool for me to jump on with you, and I was honored that you thought of me out of all the talented creatives that was at the university, was the first SEU extension site, like masterclass, that it was out at Christ Fellowship Church, man. And like, I think it was 3 days worth of filming, some incredible site directors on different topics. And that was like my first kind of glimpse into your world, other than, visiting like these other sites to talk with students, which is more like a documentary type film style of like creating a, 2 to 4 minute video type of piece. But this, I really get to sit in, and you taught one of the courses, and just listen to like some really talented spiritual leaders at these churches that also, had a university college there as well. But man, I mean, like, what gave you the idea to jump into that scene and, just create this type of content that could empower leaders and strengthen them, and something that they could watch, rinse, repeat? Because like for me, it was amazing to see from the back end.
Yeah, I think it goes back to when I was we'll call it a young leader or a younger leader in my early 20s. And one of the lessons that stuck with me is this idea of being a lifelong learner, that the greatest leaders, the best leaders, the most God-honoring leaders maintain the learning posture. There's a humility in that. There's a teachable spirit in that. And so I've tried my best to maintain that through the years. And as I bring it to what you're just saying, part of what happens in the context that I work and live in is when we're working with all these churches, a lot of them ask, how does this other church do it? Right? Like Christ Fellowship, you mentioned, is a church in Palm Beach County, Florida. They have 100 and some on college students in their program. And part of their vision is, 80+% of high school graduates go off to college and they lose their faith within 2 years, and it might even be closer to 90%. And for them, their vision is, we don't want that to happen. We want to keep those students right here. We want to help them continue to grow, develop. We want to serve them, equip them. And so other churches want to know, well, what do you do and how do you do that? And so when this idea of, let's do a master class that shares from my vantage point what I've learned or seen from these other churches like Christ Fellowship and the leaders that are there, and let them share and capture it on video so that we can pass it on to people. Because one of the things that we're constantly doing is, how do we share best practices? How do we share not just what we've learned historically, that's part of it. So what have we learned over the last 10 years of working with churches to raise up next generation leaders? How are they spiritually formed? How is their character transformed? All those things. Historically, what have we seen? But also, what's trending now? What are we seeing in our day and age? Last year, this year, what's even ahead and over the horizon that we can, sort of not say predict, but kind of see what's coming. And so to try to capture some of that and share with some of our, top-minded thinkers, sharp-minded thinkers, innovative thinkers, because what we are about at the university is I never set out to really be part of academia, you could say. I mean, there's a lot of great things about that, but what wasn't me? I'm a leader. I'm a local church guy, you could say. But when this opportunity came in front of me and God led me to it, really, I said, oh, yeah, we get to serve local churches in this academic institution and leverage our accreditation and, all the resources that we have to serve local churches. And I went, oh, yeah, I'm in. And it's been so fun and so different. But part of what we do is we're innovating what education looks like. So the very model that we do, we used to call it extension sites. We more call it network campuses. But it's like a mini college at a church. So like the Belonging Co. College is at the Belonging Co., which is a church in Nashville that some of you guys might know who are listening. They have 100+ students that are in their context. They're serving in the area of music and worship or digital media and design or pastoral ministry or production or even business and psychology degrees can be offered, and they're getting hands-on experience. So we just tried to wrap all that up. I mean, I could go on. We just tried to wrap all that up in a masterclass and go, what have you learned? What are you seeing in students? What do you want to pass on? And that's really what was the impetus to what you're saying.
All right, so Steve, let's transition to your why. For me personally, just to give you a little bit, is Matthew 28 when Jesus is telling the disciples to go to all nations, and the next couple verses tells you a lot more, but basically go to all nations, baptize, share the gospel, share the good news type of thing. And so I think of conversations like this that hopefully we can encourage people to just share the gospel. It could be in a university, it could be a church setting, or it could just, be on a golf course, right? But like, what is Steve's why, right? Because your history in pastoralship and obviously in leadership and being author of 5 really awesome books and a good split of like all of that, you really dive in and specialize in a few really unique areas of leadership. But what's your why at this point? You're incredibly accomplished and obviously in the church ministry and Christian higher ed scene, but like what keeps you going? What's that why?
Yeah, that's a great question. There's a few things that converge for me in my life. There's the idea of relationships, healthy relationships, the importance of those. There's to what you mentioned in Matthew 28, there's the vision that God really gives us, Jesus gives us, of reaching the world with the gospel, sharing the message of love and hope and grace. So how do you become a voice of hope to people, to the next generation? And so I wrote a book called Talking About God, which is a recounting of 6 friends of mine and my wives that we journey with. And it kind of recounts our journey in narrative form. Spiritual formation, discipleship converges into that. Leadership development converges. But I think for me, one of the verses at my core, or you could say is a core value of mine, is Colossians 4, verses 4 through 6, that essentially says, be wise in the way you act toward outsiders. Make the most of every opportunity. And then it goes on to say, make your conversation seasoned with salt and full of grace. I'm paraphrasing a little bit, but and I just love that because there's been people that God has brought into my life that I experience fear and anxiety like anybody else would when I go to share my faith in different forms or ways. But to be wise in the way that we interact with the world around us, with people on the fringe, people that are resistant, people that don't believe what you believe, and make the most of every opportunity. And that to me doesn't mean you force it. It doesn't mean you push it on somebody, but it means you remain open. And as you move through your life, you're paying attention to the presence of God, the activity of God, the work of God in someone's life. And one of the mentors in my life said something to the effect to me one time. I said, how do you know like when to share with people or what to share? And one of the insights he passed on to me is he said, I'm always looking for people who are already searching for God. And people go through different seasons, and they're they're hungrier sometimes and less hungry at other times. They're more resistant sometimes and less resistant other times. But leaning into that and embracing that as a reality. So when you ask me my why, well, it's ultimately so that people can find faith in God. And God has given me different gifts and talents, and I have weaknesses too. But the talents and gifts and opportunities that He brings before me, I want to be ready for them. And so that's what drives me, that I would be ready for the person who doesn't know God, who wants to hear about God or is searching, that I would be ready for the person. I think a lot of times your calling in life is lived out in a way that you don't expect and you don't know when moments are coming to you. That's at least how my life's played out. So it's like, I love the word unscripted. My life is unscripted. And part of that is like, I want to be ready for the moment, whether that's someone who doesn't know God, whether that's someone who does. I look at my own life and I go, there's conversations that people have had with me. Many of them don't know how impactful what they said was in that conversation. I mean, some might, but I grabbed onto an insight they gave, or I remember I have a son with special needs. I remember when one of my mentors told me when we were kind of going through the discovery of his diagnosis, and he said to me, he said, Holden, my youngest son, Holden's going to be the greatest mentor you will ever have in your life. And I was like, that just struck me as like, whoa. And I think about it, I think he was around 2 years old then, he's 15 today. 13 years later, I go, oh man, he was right. Like, I've learned so many things in the context of my relationship with Holden. God's used that in my life, and that's just a beautiful thing. And so I'm kind of circling around your question, but like the why is like, I want to be prepared for the moments that come, but also embrace that I don't know when they're coming, and I don't know what they're going to be like or look like, but I want to be ready to be a good steward of the opportunities and the relationships that God has put before me.
Man, Steve, I knew you would knock that question out of the ballpark. All right. So now that we've kind of gotten your why, your background, kind of what you're doing right now, I want to throw a piece of data at you. I think I'm pretty big into data and analytics and YouTube and different stuff like that. And so I'm going to throw something at you that involves the church right now, and I want to get your reaction on it. Okay.
Yeah.
So according to recent studies, Steve, back in 2024, 27% of Americans participated in online religious services. Out of that 27%, 10% are exclusively at home, with 17% for in person. Some other studies out there even have shown that 33% of Christians have found their church home online. What's your thoughts on that? Are you surprised a little bit?
Yeah, I did not know those statistics exactly, though they don't surprise me when you say them. Yeah, that's a great question. I think that I'll say a couple things. I mean, one is, on the one hand, I love, appreciate, and have benefited from the technology of whether it's hearing sermons or various things like that. So on the one hand, it's really a wonderful thing, and I embrace that. I know people personally who have that's been an instrumental part and significant part of their own faith journey and their own growing. At the same time, I go, there's something that I've also found in my own life and many other people, that being with one another face to face is a powerful thing. I think one of the things that we saw, of course, during COVID, those days is the loneliness that began to happen when everything, quote unquote, went online, virtual, all that. So I think it's a mixed bag. It's a lot of benefit, a lot of blessing, but a caution and a danger too. And so I think it's like a lot of things that that are like that. I would tell anybody, if they've been going to church online for a year or whatever time frame, that's great, and I'm sure it's been beneficial. But I would venture to say there's more that will benefit that person if they would start coming in person. And this is the other thing. I tell people who, in the church context, I've recruited and envisioned people to come volunteer at churches. And I'll say to them, I've said this for many years, I said, this church, no, I say it this way, you need to serve more than this church needs you to serve. And what I'm getting at is, you serving is part of your own discipleship and growth, right? Yeah, we have needs that our church needs volunteers. The typical church is built on volunteers, But for you to be present, for you to serve, for you to be a contributor, not just a consumer, is a very significant thing for the health of your soul. So I would say all that to wrap that thought is I actually don't believe the ongoing trajectory of only being online, though there's many good things in that, I think that will eventually lead you to unhealth in your soul because you're not present with people, you're not serving, you're typically simply consuming. And some consuming is good, but if it's only consuming, that leads to a bad place, I believe.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I 100% agree. I mean, like, there's a ton that you get away. I mean, we're pretty instructed to kind of gather and meet when you look at the Bible.
For sure. For sure.
There's tons of benefits from it, actually finding people to do life with. I mean, I kind of think of it as like a Sunday small group, and then hopefully you find one or two people. At least for me, it's been guys I've met in small groups. We play golf together and just started doing life together.
Yep.
And so there's tons of benefits from that. I guess my last question on this point before we kind of wrap up, and then I kind of want to see what your vision for you personally is for the SEU Ministry Network, and just maybe a couple things that you're working on.
Sure.
The last point in question, kind of based off that piece of data, is do you think, and this can be a little maybe touch and go, because churches traditionally, at least the ones that I've worked in, ministries as well, most of them operate all week for one day, right? That doesn't mean that you don't have, like, maybe you got a Wednesday night service or you got some type of small group or something that's happened at the church, but the main focus is one day a week type of thing. And that's just kind of across the board. I think a lot of big churches that I've been involved with and seen, that's kind of the main focus in terms of content and just direction, right? And it completely makes sense. But based on that data, do you think church leaders and churches should look at their online audience? So like, I'm asking this question based on most likely this church is streaming to YouTube or some other platform because they have production, they have broadcast, right? Mm-hmm. Should they take their online audience as serious as their in-person in terms of discipleship and spreading the gospel and just intentionality behind teaching and discipling?
Yeah, I mean, that's a great question. I think, again, I'll start from the place of thinking about my own life. And I think of books I've read, podcasts or sermons I've listened to, leadership talks. I feel like, people define discipleship in a lot of different ways, and there's lots of layers to it. But I do feel like in my life, there's been people that I would say have discipled me in some form. Like I think of Dallas Willard and how much I've read his stuff over and over and over, listened to him, all that, and how impactful that's been in shaping my own faith journey, my view of God, those kind of things. So, I mean, I'm a huge fan of that, as most people are. At the same time, I go, I would say my most significant moments in life, transformative moments, have most of them have come because of or as a result of God putting someone in my life. And so I could list a long list of people that have had a deep impact on my life. So I think the deepest impact, though I've learned a lot from books and sermons and podcasts, etc., the deepest impact comes relationally. I mean, typically so for most people. And so I think that's a huge part of it. There's another guy named Steve McCoy, who's a pastor in Florida, a church called 360. And I've worked with him to design an app called Small Circle, and it's a one-on-one discipleship app. And I love the vision of his church and how we've designed this app, and how I've tried to live my life is when you think about discipling someone and mentoring people and even leadership development, when you think about spiritual formation and having an impact on someone in that way, it really happens in small circles. You could say one-on-one or one on a few. There's a place for the big group. There's a place for technology. There's a place for multi-site, churches and, all of that. But again, if it's absent of the one-on-one, if it's absent of the deep relational touches, we're going to be surface level Christians. I mean, at best, in my view. And so, there's supplemental things like multi-site churches and online. I mean, all the stuff I'm saying, but I would say that to anybody if you are not living in deeper relationship, and that can look so different in everybody's life. I asked a mentor one time when I was at a church, and I was new to the church, and I said, "So how does discipleship happen at this church?" And he said two words. He said, "It's informal and it's very intentional." And I always took that with me. It's a simple thing, but that's often the case. It doesn't have to be informal. You can formalize it, but that's often how it looks. And I think, again, it goes back to what I was saying a minute ago. It's like unscripted. It's like, man, I find myself on the golf course you mentioned, or playing pickleball, or sitting down drinking Gatorade when we're tired playing basketball, and really meaningful conversations emerge. And I don't know, maybe it's just me or my experience, but like, guys sort of function like that too. It's like it can't be forced, right? I mean, a lot of guys, they don't necessarily sit over lunch and talk or coffee for 2 hours, right? They're like on the go, or they're doing something, or playing a sport, or whatever it is, even working, and conversations happen. And I've had a lot of those in my life. So anyway, I was kind of circling your question, but the relational touch. Of course, I wrote a book, Relational Intelligence, and I think being relationally intelligent
That's right.
is so important to life, to leadership, to marriage, to parenting, to all aspects of meaningful friendships and all those things. And we were created for relationship. So anything outside of that is at best half-baked, I would say.
Okay. I'd love to get you on the pod again in the future and look at some more data pieces, because I just, like a lot of experts, when they look at this type of data, only project in the next 2 to 3 years that 10% goes a little bit higher, that people are just, for one reason or another. I think a lot of them are probably like mixed blended, to where they have kind of a church, or they kind of jump around in person, but for one reason or another, they're just streaming online. And so I think the question that we're definitely not going to jump into this one, because I want to get to this last one before we wrap up. But, there's the thought and the question that the church does great. It's built for in-person, just relational discipleship, doing life together and worshiping and praising God. I mean, it's obviously the cornerstone and a lot of other stuff with it too. But does the church need to do a better job at going where people are? And right now, I mean, when you look at apps, it's YouTube, it's free, and it just overtook Netflix this past year in total TV watch time percentage-wise. I mean, it's almost 2.5, close to 3% higher than all the other paid apps. And when you look at Christian content, there's tons of streaming analytics on watch time that, like, churches are doing a great job just getting their broadcast up, But for one reason or another, because of social media, because of this digital age, they're just kind of finding themselves streaming. So would love to get you back on and kind of dive in stuff like that.
One quick interjecting thought, and I don't know the exact data off the top of my head, but you can look into this for next time. Because I did hear a statistic, and it creates a little bit of dissonance, because everything you said, and then you see the trend of 18 to 25-year-olds who are actually buying Bibles more than ever. Like, they're trending up in sales in that age group. So it's like, it almost like throws you off. You're like, wait a minute, they have their phone, they have YouVersion or whatever they use, all the stuff you're saying. And then at the same time, now they're going to buy a Bible they can carry and hold. And I'm seeing more people carry a Bible into church, where it like trended the other way for many years. Now it's so I don't know if that's just my context, but I did read that statistic that Bible sales are actually going up in that age group.
Yeah, no, it's definitely taken a big turn. I saw a study on that too. Wasn't prepared to drop it. I appreciate you throwing that in there, because like that's another like really good point, and a way to kind of analyze that. If younger people in that generation that everybody's trying to figure out how to reach, and when you start looking at avatar from a marketing standpoint, like what's their behavior, and just different areas that you're going to try to kind of use data to guess how to speak to them, they're buying physical Bibles at a crazy rate that we haven't seen in like 20 plus years in terms of physical Bible sales. But then when you look on the flip side, people probably more in their late 20s to 30s are now calling online church on your church's YouTube, their church home, and they're primarily streaming. So it's a lot of conflicting different points in terms of, I think, like 10-year gaps right now between like 20 to 40 on just what people are kind of doing. And so great topic point, but I want to end with this, Steve. So what's your vision for yourself personally right now in relation to what you do professionally with Southeastern? And I mean, obviously we've dove into your why and like why you're so passionate, how Dr. Engel over at SEU kind of got you into it with him and kind of pulled you back from, like what you were doing full time within pastoral leadership. And, but like, what's the next step for you? I mean, like, what does 2025 look like for you for the rest of the year?
Yeah, so I've been thinking a lot about the idea of personal vision and how do you not only attain that, and it's some of what I talk about with young adults, like how do you develop a personal vision for your life, but also realizing I'm 46 years old as we speak today, and in my life, both now and previously, and I know more of this is ahead, it's like I have to recalibrate too in terms of what my personal vision looks like. Sometimes that's just kind of a refresh. Sometimes it evolves and changes and takes a different shape. I would say part of my own calling that I discovered in college. I came to faith in college. I was at the University of South Carolina, and long story short, started following Christ, and then sensed this calling to ministry. I had really no idea, never even thought that before. But I had no idea what that was going to look like. I thought, I'll start a church or I'll lead a church. I've never led a church. I've never been a lead pastor, but played a lot of different roles. And so I think what I've embraced in my life is the most important thing. Yeah, I mean, it's good to always ask, God, what are you calling me to? And to have a sense of your calling, and I have that, but also to go, that can take a lot of different forms, and it has for me. There's been a lot of, you could say, detours, sometimes dead ends. The process of waiting in life when you really want something, when you really want to change. When I know I was in a ministry job at one point, and it wasn't a fit, and I ended up in that job for 3 years longer than I wanted to. My wife told me at one point, she said, "You're like an Italian chef in a French kitchen." And she's meaning like, this church really doesn't want what you're cooking up, kind of thing. And that's kind of what I was feeling,
Right.
But I mean, when you bring it to today in 2025, I have a deep, strong, abiding sense of what I want to give my life to is raising up next generation ministry leaders. But there's a nuance to it that I've always grabbed onto, the idea of it's more important who you become than what you do. And so I'm a 3 on the Enneagram, for anybody who knows that, which is like achiever. I have achiever on the Strength Finder. So I think about what I want to achieve and what I want to accomplish. And those are all good things. But if I forget, and sometimes I do, that the main journey, the most substantial journey in my life, and I believe everybody else's life, should be at least, is who am I becoming? And to become the kind of person God wants you to become, it takes, unfortunately, pain, suffering, waiting, sorrow. My dad passed last year, and it's been a grieving process to that. My son has special needs that there's heavy burdens that my wife and I carry every day, really. There's stuff that doesn't go right in life, and I've learned, and sometimes have to relearn, that all of that is like the raw material for transformation in your life. So I feel called to do stuff, and I strive toward that, but I try never to forget to ask the question, God, what are you doing in the midst of this? What are you doing in the hard stuff of life and in the good stuff of life? And just trying to pay attention to what God's voice and what he's doing, what he's saying, and then just how he's shaping me, because that's going to lead me forward. And I've also seen, this is the last thing I'll say, I've also seen that tends to be how God uses you, right? I mean, in other words, who you become, how God transforms you, tends to be what you end up passing on, or tends to be kind of how you impact people, if you will. And so I want to become everything God wants me to become. And then, yeah, I'll do some stuff along the way, and I think God will use it, and I'll accomplish a few things too. But if I can stay centered in that, I think I'll be all right.
Steve, wow, man, I can't thank you enough for popping on this. I know your travel schedule is wild. And so, I put the request in, had to wait about a week and a half. I feel very blessed to get you in tonight to get this recorded so we can get it out. Super impactful testimonial that you have. I really didn't dive deep into yours. For everything, because man, you just got such an incredible story. Just from what you did from college, you briefly talked about it, but you also didn't kind of throw out that you're really good at baseball and some different things that kind of just, had you positioned, somewhere like as you're living it, and then God just did a ton with you and just the lives and the young people that you've been able to impact, leaders out there too, man. It's just really, really incredible. So let's do this, man. Other than your website, again, I'm going to throw it up on the screen right now below me. It's just stevesaccone.com. But if people want more information on you, is that just where they're going to go to find your books? I know you've got I think you have most of them on Amazon and a couple other places, right?
Yeah, you can find them on Amazon and some other places too. Look at the books. If any of them pique your interest, that's great. If you go to my website, I do some speaking, consulting, coaching as well. You can find that information there. But yeah, I'm grateful to be here with you today, Darrell, and just kind of share and dialogue together.
Yeah, absolutely. Steve, hopefully we can get you on the pod again sometime later this year. And I'd love to dive in some data and then just get it from a strategic leadership position from someone who's very just deep into like the church scene and church growth too. Because like there's a lot of questions, a lot of concerns with just Christians right now, especially a little bit older ones as they see in person kind of dwindle, or maybe some big churches do still really, really well, maybe some medium-sized ones, but then you got to look at data based on what's kind of happening online. So would love to dive in deeper with you again on that a little bit later this year.
That'd be fun. Let's do it.
Cool. SteveSaccone.com. Check it out. Steve, man, I can't thank you enough for joining me on this one. That's going to do it for this episode. Hopefully hit the subscribe button if this content is speaking to you any. Also, share this episode with anybody that you think would give them a little bit of value from this conversation as well. And also stick around in just a few seconds. Let me know what the suggested video, if YouTube got it right for you. All right, we'll see you next time.